Shortly after the return of soldiers from World War II, the United States government unveiled a design for a new living arrangement which would make suburban housing, previously only available to the upper classes, available to the growing middle class. This new lifestyle was generated by a desire to flee the dirty and crowded city centres and seek a more agreeable existence within the suburbs, with the peace and open space of the countryside and the amenities and convenience of the city. This documentary offers a critique on the suburban landscape and the lifestyle that has been manufactured around it. Kansas City is an example of a North American suburban metropolis, with a small downtown of office blocks and government buildings, and a sprawling landscape of housing developments and power centers that extends both Kansas and Missouri, encompassing 318 square miles.
When we arrived here 10 years ago and we lived in the city limits itself, we were there probably 2 or 3 months, and I remember Lynn's friend came to visit, and we had yet to go down to the commercial district with the tall buildings and everything. So we thought, well, her friend's here, let's have a night out on the town. And we picked up all of our stuff, got in the car, and we went downtown, and it was completely void of everything. I mean, the shops were shut down, there was nothing open even for dinner. We were there at, 5:30, 6 o'clock. The buildings, the office buildings had emptied out, and there was absolutely nothing.
There's several reasons why we chose to move here, but the first one I can think of is for the school system. We have 3 children, and before moving to the suburbs, we lived near the city, and but that was prior to having children. And so once we started having kids, we knew we wanted to move to a better school district for our kids.
You know, I think it's a very complicated issue as to why people started moving to the suburbs. I think initially it was predominantly prompted by race and integration, and white people who were very afraid of integration. And when African Americans would move into the neighborhood, they'd be really afraid their property values were going to go down, or they just didn't, they were very prejudiced. And so they got scared and they moved out of the inner city into the suburbs. Today, I think the issues are a little bit different. I think people move to the suburbs now more because they either want the big house in the suburbs, a new house, you know, not the old house that you see that has been around for 100 years. I don't understand that because I love those old houses. I think they're marvelous. Or because of the schools. I think there's a number of reasons that you typically find better schools in the suburbs. I think part of it is that with the urban flight and the moving to the suburbs, a lot of the educated people have moved out. The ones who have the means also are the ones who have the education.
The whole part of moving away from city has to do with marketing and new. And people were tired of living together and inside, and so they moved out to the cities, and you had yards, and all of a sudden you could be master of your own, your own field. We don't do anything. We don't do anything in America that we have not been told to do by some marketing, by the Pepsi people, by the Mac people, by Microsoft, by what we wear. Everything that we do is geared towards having us buy something new. There's nothing to do in the suburbs but shop.
Kansas City supported the development of communities in ever-extending far-flung areas. This was made possible when Kansas and Missouri were the first states to start building interstate highway systems. Interstate 435, which encircles the entire city, is the second longest beltway in the United States. Today, Kansas City and its metropolitan area has more miles of limited access highway per person than any other city in the nation. With such elaborate road systems, the vast distances in between things, and limited public transportation, a car is in many cases essential for the resident of Kansas City.
Suburbia was in a way maybe kind of predictable given the assumptions that were prevalent during the time period that it arose in human history, and that now that we're beginning to see the consequences of extracting all of that biomass and turning it into stranded assets that are far away from everything, and isolating your work from your places of play, from your places of worship, from your shopping centers, and having that all so fossil fuel dependent, and all of those costs, and that we can actually see the direction that that's heading. We actually are kind of beginning to wake up from the dream, this trance.
Suburban sprawl is a problem from a number of standpoints. One, it causes people to get farther away from the city center, farther away from jobs, and leads in a very big way to increased reliance on the motorways, on transportation, and the problems with congestion. Another area of problem with urban sprawl is the separating of communities, is disparate groups of people moving in different directions, each with their own little governmental structure which allows them to have their neighborhood, their community be what they want, which may or may not be in concert with the communities around them.
What is today believed to be the result of a free market economy, the suburban landscape was in fact designed through strict zoning laws and careless so-called city planning, a design that the United States government plummeted the majority of its post-war wealth into. To this day, suburbia is one of the most heavily subsidized living arrangements in human history, and in recent years it has become increasingly more difficult to come up with the tax dollars and energy to sustain such a landscape as snake-in road systems, vast parking lagoons, driving junk food joints, commuter track housing developments, Orwellian office parks, supercenters, brutal shopping plazas, and the space in between everything.